Hey guys and girls, it's Nathan here. Hopefully you're having a good Easter weekend. It's Saturday and thought I would pop out onto Facebook Live and have a bit of a chat with you guys, getting lots of questions in. Keep the questions coming. Got my keep calm and don't sell shirt on. So a lot of people are scared about what's happening in the current market and what's going on. Is the market crashing? Is it all over? Is Bitcoin a scam? And were the commie media all correct? And the governments with what they were saying about it was just being a scam. So, as always, guys, this isn't financial advice. I'm not your financial advisor. Obviously, always seek yourself independent expert advice. However, I'm just a dude talking about weird and wacky stuff that's in the IT space. So today I want to cover off on a few things. Had some good wins this week, so I wanted to cover off on some of my wins and some of the things that I'm working on, just so you guys get to see, what I'm doing out there in the marketplace. I want to talk about a little bit about the market, what's potentially happening out there in the market, out there in the marketplace, why the price is going down, and a little bit about the upcoming GFD, and to obviously answer any questions that you may have. So some of my wins this week, one of them, I've just got a few little notes here. Looking obviously at the market at the moment, prices have obviously gone down quite a bit, 266 billion on CoinMarketCap at the moment. What does that mean to everybody? It means that a lot of people have lost money that have bought in the last few months. However, it means that there's good, fantastic buying opportunity, and for myself, I see that as always I'm buying things below market value, whether it be furniture for the house, whether it be a house, whether it be whatever it is. I like buying things that are below market value and things when they're on sale. And today we're seeing an opportunity there to be able to get in cheap and get a low entry price. So I'm looking at this as an opportunity to potentially pick up some stuff on the cheap. Will it go lower than what it currently is? Quite possibly. That's the fun thing about a true free market that isn't manipulated from the normal aspects of what you'd have, is that prices do go up and down depending on activities that are happening out there in the greater market. So the more adoption we have, I personally feel, the less that we will have less volatility out there in the marketplace. So one of the things that I've been looking at this week is low entry prices. Another win that I've had this week, very, very big win for me at the moment. I've been mining for the course of the last 12 months and making some really cool sort of advancements there when it comes to the mining front. This week, the biggest thing that when mining, I look at mining as a money printer. Basically, you can plug it in the wall and it prints off money 24/7. At the current rates, looking at the returns that are out there and the cost of power in Australia. Power in Australia is very, very expensive to the rest of the world. We're up there with one of the highest power expenses that are in the world. And I've been trying to find ways to minimise power, create my own power, so on and so forth. And this week, one of my mates that I work very closely with on a power front and with our mining, we have fun with what we're doing. We've actually finally cracked the code on basically building ourselves infinite amount of power. Very early days still. However, been able to create a device which runs from solar, which would remove the need for a power supply unit. We're basically in essence create our own power supply unit with a regulator coming from solar panel to keep direct current coming into the hardware that we're using. So it's a very, very big win. I'll keep you guys updated on that, but just weird stuff that I work on for the fun of it. But if we can do that, you've got infinite amount of potential from that side. You're generating profits from nothing in essence. So that's really, really cool. That's coming along nicely. Once again, out there on the mining market, we're seeing that fixed assets are coming down in price. So if you're thinking of getting into mining, GPU cards are all sort of coming down in price, and as is your ASIC miners and stuff out there. Very, very competitive sort of prices that are out there in the marketplace at the moment. If you do require any help on that front, hit up one of the team at sales@hashrate.com.au. We can get, source all the parts that are required for mining. They're very difficult to get out there sometimes, so that's one of the angles of where we've got. A lot of people are talking about the market at the moment, so moving on from my wins. Last win this week is the Be Decentralized website's coming along very nicely, and that should be up very shortly with lots of resources and places of where you can gain more knowledge, and a lot of the stuff that we talk about on this page will be put on there as a hub, so you can revert back to and index it, so the blog posts, so on and so forth, to give you guys a bit of knowledge around all the different aspects of this place. I'm going to post in the next little while, I think it's scheduled to go out in the next 48 hours or so, the Bitcoin obituaries. So you can go and Google Bitcoin obituaries on Google, and what we're seeing at the moment, like I was looking at CNBC, I made the post yesterday that we're living in such manipulated times. I think that the market is being pulled from very different angles, whether it be media manipulation, whether it be centrally controlled manipulation, because crypto is really, the technology that's growing in the background out there is so strong, it's putting a lot of the old ways at risk. The actual tech of what people are using blockchain for is redesigning the landscape of our humanity moving forward, and I think it's a big risk to the establishment and the system that's there already. Remember, the system that we're currently living in is only about 150 years old. So, very, very interesting times there. The CNBC, I posted yesterday, CNBC is just constantly putting out FUD, putting out crap about, crypto's scam, crypto's dead, etc., etc. But what you'll find in the obituaries is that I've noticed in comments coming through, I'll come and answer some of your questions. So just for those that are just joining at the moment, if you have some questions, jot them down. I'll look up the questions in a moment and start answering some of the questions that you may have. But previously, like 2013, Bitcoin went down to $80 from like $500. Bitcoin has gone from certain different aspects before. If we look at people out there that are saying it's lucky, like those people that bought at the start were lucky, the people that bought in 2013, 2010 were lucky. What you'll find is that they're not just lucky. Luck is a word that I've heard a lot of times. When luck and success are put in the same comment, in the same sentence, generally it's coming from someone that doesn't understand what it takes to be so-called lucky, or it's like I don't like to use the word, but it's like a victim sort of mentality where people go, that person's just lucky they did it. But if you think about it, the market was at 100 billion. I remember when it went under 100 billion only in August last year or September last year with a lot of China FUD. Even though the market's been pelted and smashed over the course of the last few weeks, still at $250 billion. So sure, you can look at Bitcoin when it was at 20 grand, now it's at 10 grand per se, and it's gone down by 50%. What about the poor bastards that bought beforehand at a price of $1,200, and it went down to $200, and it went down to $200 for about a year when Mt. Gox collapsed, or when Bitcoin was trading at $32 and it went down 16 times down to $2 and stayed there for a short period of time. So, it's not about the luck, it's about understanding that the tech is out there and understanding how it will actually evolve and be able to transform humanity. And as the network effect grows, there's some really, really cool projects out there. I think we'll continue to see the prices head into the right direction. But to call it being dead, it's been called dead so many times over, it's quite funny. So just as a bit of reassurance out to you guys out there that may have just come along recently to enter this space. I want to look at CoinMarketCap. A lot of people asking, Nathan, what are you buying? What are you, obviously from when I'm buying crypto myself, there's only a finite amount of dollars that you can keep pouring into the system. But I do like to pick up on the lows, because when you're picking up these things on sale, that's where you're making the greatest profit. I don't want to be paying prices at the top, so I look at these times to be able to go in there. As mentioned, Bitcoin went from $32 down to $2. Not financial advice. The prices could go down further, but you need to have your own strategy in place. So just looking at the top, obviously I'm going to go and convert into US dollars now. US dollars for Bitcoin is $7,000. That's really cheap. Ethereum at $400. That was, about $1,400 in US dollars, or 2,000 Aussie at the start of the year. Ripple, that's a piece of shit. I saw a comment pop up beforehand. What's my longer term view of Ripple? I think that Ripple is the devil to the earth and humanity. I've bought Ripple before. The day I found out what Ripple was, I sold it off, and I don't care. I could have made lots and lots of money on Ripple, but it's against my belief system of how I carry and conduct my life. It's an insult to freedom, liberty. It's the most centralized system you'll ever find, and yeah, it's not something that I wish to engage in. Bitcoin Cash, $716, really, really cheap. Litecoin, $121. EOS, $6. The funny thing with EOS is that it's staying pretty stable throughout this time. That just goes to show sort of the strength there. There's lots of cool projects. I'm just reading out of the top 10 here on CoinMarketCap. Cardano, it's good to see Cardano back down to where it belongs, lower than EOS, because it's got oversold. I picked that up at 3 cents. I think it went up to about $2 at the height. IOTA, very cheap looking. NEO, very, very cheap looking. $51 US for a project that's got so much endless potential. Tron, not a big fan of that. So on and so forth. There's some very good projects out there, and some very good bargains to be had out in the marketplace. I'm not here to give you the advice as to what to invest your money into or what to purchase, because that's not what I'm here for. I'm just here giving my view and my sentiment on the market. Looking at the GFD that I've been talking about, the fact that we're going to see a big financial mess out there. The financial system has been manipulated way too much, and it cannot be sustainable to keep going on the rate that it is. So for those that, I encourage you to ask me questions if you haven't been following all this time. But for those that have been following the markets for the last 10 years, 12 years, what happened in GFC time is that basically $7, $8 trillion worth of shitty loans brought down the global financial system. And what we saw in return from that is the central banks obviously printing so much money out there and in essence devaluing the dollar in order to keep the whole financial system afloat. They've done a good job at that. They've kept the system afloat, but from that they've created a bigger mess. It's like having a credit card for 10 grand. You can't pay the 10 grand, so the bank comes back to you and says, here's another $1,000 to pay your interest for the next 6 months. And at the same time, here's an advancement where you're upping your credit card limit to $20,000. Come back 6 months' time, $20,000, you can't pay it, you can't service it, you can't reduce the debt. They work out a plan and you get $50,000 credit card, so on and so forth. That's basically in essence what all the financial markets have done since 2008, 2009. And we're at a point now where liquidity is drying out of the market, so the bank's coming back saying, listen, we need you to pay down your credit card, we need you to reduce your debt, so on and so forth. And what that is causing is a liquidity crisis out there in the marketplace. I've spoken to lots of people from lots of different angles, from all different businesses, from all different ways of life, and there is a bit of a crunch out there. With any sort of bad time, there's always opportunity. So for myself, I retired from the workforce in the middle of the GFC, and I use property as my vehicle, and I continue to use property as my vehicle going through what we're about to see, because I think that you need to understand how the whole system works. Debt becomes irrelevant with inflation. Being in a time of high inflation, which is the only way out of this mess, we're going to see more money printed, and savings is something that's probably going to be the worst sort of thing to be had. In the past, everyone says old adage of having money saved. Having liquidity at this point is very important, by having access to funds to be able to navigate yourself through this market. If we notice, over the course on the 26th of March, we had the yuan being traded in the petro So currently how the dollar is designed is that the thing that underpins the US dollar, which is the base currency for the world where everyone has to trade in, is traded in the US dollar backed by the petrol dollar. We saw this week China as the first one to really be able to successfully roll this out. They actually started trading in the yuan. What has happened in the past is we saw Gaddafi tried to do gold-backed petrol trading. Within 6 months he was killed and his country was invaded for weapons of mass destruction. I know it might be a bit controversial to put out there, but it's fact, go and look it up. And we saw Saddam try and trade in the euro 6 months before he was killed as well. So obviously China is a big country, there's a lot of people, a lot of population. If a war was to start out in China, it would be something that would be catastrophic, and it wouldn't be well for the US and the policymakers that do actually make these calls. So that's why we've seen of recent times a trade war coming out, because if you can kill them financially, it's pretty much the same sort of thing. So very, very interesting times. The yuan trading in petrol is very, very interesting times. Sorry, just got distracted by something. The yuan is trading at $4 more as a premium, so it goes a little bit to show the confidence that's actually in trading on that front. If we're looking at the trend line for all the stock markets out, there's a similarity between 1929, 1980s with the stock market crash, and the Nikkei, which all have dropped this week below the trend line. So the trend line for the Dow Jones has finally broken under, I think it's a 200-day trading average, and it's been quickly bounced back up, but that's very, very shaky. If we look at the Dow Jones this year, it has been all over the place. There's been lots of times where it's had a retracement, very strong retracement, and I think that on a personal front, obviously, once again, not financial advice and not being a financial advisor, but looking at it from a layman's terms, I think if we were to see the Dow Jones drop significantly in one or two trading sessions, that could be enough to trigger a downfall once it hits the derivatives market. The derivatives market is basically the ramification. As I said beforehand, $8 trillion was what caused the GFC. We've now got $1.2 quadrillion in derivatives, which would be enough to actually bring down the whole financial system. The good side of it though, and I wouldn't know if crypto is going to be safe because it's too young, too new to actually see a crash like this. But what we'd see from the ramifications of something like this occurring would most likely be government or central bank intervention, as we saw back in 2008, 2009. Here in Australia, the RBA reduced interest rates over a period of 5 months, by 4.25%. It was 7.25% at the RBA, and it quickly came down to a 3% interest rate. And over the course of the last decade, interest rates have been able to be increased, and a lot of people come to me and say interest rates, they might go up, etc., etc. They're just impossible to bring up. So that's why we're seeing out of control inflation happen on so many different fronts. One of being property, and that's obviously why I've used property as a vehicle, so I saw that happening at the time. So lots of cool things happening out there in the marketplace. I'm just going to go and turn to our video to see what comments you guys have got and what you would like me to answer for you today. So just going to have a look. Sorry guys, just one moment. So I've got a few comments here. The whales haven't even started yet. As I reported on last week, I think that we're about to see in the not too distant future, sometime throughout 2018, some institutional money come into the marketplace, which we haven't seen yet. I think Japan has seen institutional money come into the crypto space. However, other Western sort of countries haven't been able to build the infrastructure required legally for them to be able to do that. Scott, love your work. Love you too, mate. Thanks for tuning in. Vince, have you heard about the crypto cartel theory? And if so, do you think it could be a possibility with the market how the market has been responding over the last 4 months. I think that we're all a part of the cartel in no matter what sort of market, but the level of fraud and manipulation from the cartel that you'd see in other financial markets isn't able to play out in the same way in the crypto space, and that's why I love it, because it is a free market. And the more people that waken up to the fact of what crypto can do, instead of just being an instrument where people go and play the pokies on by buying themselves a few coins and watching them go up, the better that it will be. And it, as is reportedly said over and over again, in the past, the internet has reshaped the way that humanity has played out over the course of the last 2 decades. We haven't been able to see any real sort of politician stay in full office in a term for one full term without some sort of contest to their leadership. Simple reason being is that we've got levels of free speech, not necessarily free speech, but we've got levels of social media and whatnot, which tech has caused, which has given people a bit more of a freedom of speech rather than watching, the media outlets that we're designed to live into, which just, have so many rules and regulations behind them, which limit them on what they can actually do, what they can say and what not, which are really controlled by the system. That's all we had beforehand as a propaganda outlet to get our information from. Today we've got levels of speech, levels of feelings, levels of opinions, obviously via Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, all that sort of stuff. The tech space is really, and the internet space has really, played a role on hurting governments. So how many times have we seen a politician in the last 10 years being kicked out of office due to, sentiment and feelings of, the population? That has occurred. What I think that crypto has the ability to revolutionise, from my personal viewpoint, is it is a massive threat to the whole banking system. It's a massive threat to governments around the world, and it has a massive threat to the whole financial system as a whole of how it has been running over the course of the last 100 or so years. So that is a very view of where I see this war. There's a war out there. The media is obviously controlled by whoever, the institutions or whatever, which the media out there is reporting specifically on things to keep the system back together. So that's my view on that. Any other questions, guys? I'm just having a look here. I can't see too many more questions. I'll just go check and see my notes on anything else that I had to talk about today. I think that's about it from my side, guys. So any questions, keep them coming through. Appreciate the love that we're getting here. Appreciating the the movement that we've got. As always, if you can hit the like button, hit the share button, and comment, it gets the word out there and helps us, take on and conquer the world even more so. We'll catch up soon. Have a great Easter weekend.